Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good golly, Miss Molly. Welcome to this video on the Rock and Roll Rowdies channel, where I'm joined today by Rowdy Mischief Maker in Chief, Mr. Alan Granny Grange. Good afternoon to you, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, sir. I'm on a slightly different ego today. I'm
You're
Big G today.
Yes,
Some days I'm Alfie, some days I'm Alan, some days I'm Granny. Today I'm feeling like Big G. G was a big, boisterous, loudmouth.
Are you thinking that you found the Big G spot then?
Oh well, I've spent most of my adult life looking for it.
You found the Big G spot on this video. But we thought we'd have a nice,
Maybe so.
We thought it would be nice to have a conversational discussion today about your first band that you worked with, and possibly one of the most overlooked bands in the progressive rock genre, Gnidrolog.
Yeah, my first professional gig
that you got paid money for.
Money and semolina.
Which is the what I would describe semolina as the arse end of desserts. I never liked semolina.
I liked it. You know, the Middle Ages had salt. The 70s had semolina.
When my mother served a semolina for dessert, I was awfully disappointed.
I love it. I still do.
I'm glad you enjoy it, sir. But
I suppose for our American viewers, that would be cream of wheat.
That's right. Yeah, similar stuff. Not like creamed rice. I liked creamed rice.
I love creamed rice too. That was my train spotting choice when I was traveling. I'd have cans of creamed rice.
Yes. Yeah, nice stuff. Yeah,
go through different phases.
Indeed,
it's like a junkie goes through different phases of stimulants.
Well, indeed, the canned food stuff. Even to this day, I've got a few cans of stuff upstairs that if I just whip open and eat out of the can if I'm in need of comfort.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're going to go back to the heady days of the late 60s, early 70s. Kind of was it 1971 you started working for the band?
71, yeah.
And as I say, Gnidrolog, a British progressive rock group formed in the late 60s, comprising twin brothers, Colin and Stuart Goldring, which is where the name came from, I believe, that they rearranged the letters.
Yep.
On guitar, vocals, John Earl on woodwinds and keyboards, Nigel Pegram on drums and percussion, and I think, as you were saying, a keyboard player was added later, a fifth member.
Well, you mentioned the keyboard player.
Was that John?
The bass player was Pete Cowling. Was the bass player.
Cowling was the bass player who had a bit of a good career after, which we'll mention later.
He did. I've got a note here.
Yeah. And they were never a household name in the world of rock. But for me, you introduced them to me because I do not recall them from the time. They are an overlooked gem in the progressive rock canon, I would say. So we're going to talk.
Yeah, they get great reviews on those websites, the progressive websites. They get fabulous reviews.
Yeah. So we will talk a little bit about the music later when we look at the albums. We're going to talk about your time with them and some of the great gigs that they took part in, and there were some pretty impressive gigs.
Yeah,
and a little bit about the guys in the band themselves. So let's take a quick look at if this image comes up. Yeah, this is I believe this is the era that you did work with the band.
Yeah, the gentleman on the right, they've all got long hair. The guy on the right in the white shirt, he's the keyboard player that joined just after I finished with them.
Right, I see. Was that but that wasn't John Earl, that was a different guy.
It may have been. I never met him.
Yeah. So the hair is impressive, as it was for all British progressive rock bands in 1971, I would say.
Yep.
How did you then get into working with these guys? Because you were from Hartlepool. I think the brothers were from Wales. I'm not sure where they lived. But how did you get into working with these guys?
Well, I'll just give a little background. Yeah, I started in, there we go, 65 with my Beatle cut. No thoughts whatsoever of being a roadie. I just literally stumbled into being a roadie in Hartlepool in late 1967 when they closed down the steam locomotive sheds. That was my big hobby. So I ended up Mal Craggs, the other rock and roll rowdy, kind of dragged me down to a rehearsal. A local band called The Engine. We toured around the Northeast, and then in early '69, like May '69, we moved to London. And basically, there we are. We just arrived in London. That's me on the left. That instantly grew. I had a kind of a repressed teenage life. My dad was a little bit down on things. It was just the era. I was rebelling.
Yeah. And
just was unburdened. I just went crazy. And so for '69, all of the rest of '69 was just basically a party, doing the occasional gigs with this local Hartlepool band, but they didn't quite crack it. Mal and I started working with a band called Armada, another prog rock band. We did gigs all over the place with them. We were just basically learning the ropes. I learned to drive. We were learning just by doing gigs. So we did that up and down the country through the home counties around London.
That
photo is from Hartlepool.
Freezing
that was
a little bit on me, mate. Sorry, yeah, I missed a bit of that. You froze a little bit on me.
Yeah. Well, basically, that photo is when we were still in Hartlepool. That's me on the right with all the hair. We moved to London, gigged around London, and then with Armada, this jazz rock band, we gigged up and down the country. And it just eventually, I felt like I need to branch out. I suddenly realized, I could do something with this. I never aimed high, but I thought I could make a thing out of this. And so I answered an advert in one of the music papers, Melody Maker or the New Music Express, for a roadie wanted, live with the band, £10 a week, and free semolina. And actually, the semolina was my thing.
Pushed it over the edge, though, I would think.
That's what, yeah. So I was £10 a week, which was probably pretty good money.
Yeah.
You didn't count the hours. You would work all the hours you could. And that's me coming out of one of the houses. One of the guys lived out near Epping Forest. And we did rehearsals there. And that's me coming out, proud as a peacock. First professional gig.
With the drum, the cymbal, I'm assuming it is.
Cymbals. That's I think on the right might be an echo unit.
It's got the name Gnidrolog
in my right hand.
On the cover.
That's right. I got these huge square glasses on because my friend Bill was another maniac from Hartlepool. He said, I'll save you some money. He stole some glasses from me, the frames of Kensington High Street. And I just got some lenses put in. So these things are like this big.
You realize that the police cold case unit will now be after you as you've just revealed that piece of information.
I'm sure, yeah. So yeah, it was a buzz. I remember I actually went and met the band. I called them up from the advert, went to meet them. I had to borrow clothes off somebody. I thought I better look presentable because I was always covered in like grease and stuff. I wasn't like a biker, but I was scruffy. And I thought I'd better make an attempt if I'm going to go and meet people. So I borrowed some jeans and T-shirts and so went over to meet them in Leytonstone High Road, which was the absolute farthest other end from where I lived in West London. And I went to 50 Trumpington Road off Leytonstone High Road. I remember all this stuff. I'm crazy. And I remember meeting them and I thought, what the hell? I mean, they could see that I was fresh from Hartlepool. I'd been in London a year, but I was still very rough at the edges. So I was keen, I suppose. And they must have liked something about me. And they were getting a good deal, 10 quid a week. And I basically was supervised by Dick Parkinson. He totally intimidated me. Even though I was 21 and 6 feet tall, he totally intimidated me.
Still a good deal at 10 quid a week for that era, for sure.
So I got the gig and lived in the house. We all lived together in a house, like rock and roll bands lived in a house together back then.
Yeah, well, it's true. They did. Well, it was economical, but you could practice whenever you wanted then. And I guess...
well, like if Trumpington Road in Leytonstone High Road, it was just a terrace house. I mean, there was not... I don't know how much rehearsing we could get away
the neighbors wouldn't like that.
Neighbors.
So this is, I believe, this photograph that you shared with me is like possibly the first gig you were involved with them.
My first ever gig up in near Hartlepool. I didn't even know one end of a guitar from another. I still don't really. And that was the first band. That's the guitarist leaning on the drummer. Drummer's in white face paint. Wilco met some of these guys yesterday in a pub in Hartlepool. So they did a gig last night. 3 of the original band members did a gig, and so I hope
this was like the Engine era or
the Engine.
Yes.
It was just a band name. was perfect for me.
Cool.
I like trains.
It's great that you shared all these great images of you in that era, because it's fascinating to me that you were able to get into, like, you escaped, as you say, the restrictions of teenage life and then blossomed into this rock and roll.
I mean, I'm wearing a nice shirt there. I must have come from work or something. I worked in an office.
Yeah. So this picture before, though, was the first.
That was at the rehearsal. First ever contact with a face-to-face with a live musician.
Yeah.
I'd only been to a couple of concerts, gigs in a couple in the local pub at a music room. So a couple of concerts in Newcastle, but very little.
Yeah. So Gnidrolog were already established in the south of England. Living down there and established on the circuit. But you answered the call, took the full-time permanent gig, and from then on it was I guess you were on that circuit.
That's right. We did lots and lots of gigs. I think I sent you some clippings. This clipping says Gnidrolog ain't so bad. There was a reporter called Chris Welch who called himself the Raver,
a melody maker,
and he got in his head to pick on Gnidrolog. It was pretty unfair because the power of the press. He could have put a lot of people up. He called them the worst band in the world, and I thought that was unfair. What did he gain by? Anyway, I've kept that clipping, but right underneath it says Gnidrolog are not the worst band in the world. The worst band in the world is Van der Graaf Generator, and that was a band I left Gnidrolog to go and work with.
Indeed. So you've got the distinction of working with the two worst bands in the world.
Oh, they weren't. Neither were. They're both unique. I know. But if he's still alive, that Chris Welch, and I ever bump into him, I'll bring this up.
Indeed. Yeah.
Politely.
Melody maker he worked for it.
He could have ruined it. He could have had a big impact on their reception. People are so easily led. It's very possible he could have screwed him up.
Well, it's interesting that he clearly didn't like their style of music, and they were a complex band.
Yeah.
With a lot of melodies, a lot of time signature shifting, very quintessential early 70s British prog. I mean, there's jazz, there's folk, there's rock. They're all mixed up in that melange, as it will, where a lot of intertwining guitars, a lot of woodwinds.
The drummer played flute and oboe. You don't get that very often.
No, I mean, it's going to be pretty tricky when you're drumming. But they had. I think for me, when I've listened to them because of you, because as I say, I was pretty young at the time. I don't recall them.
All right.
The comparisons could be made, and I'm not comparing them in quality. I'm not saying to Gnidrolog they were followers of anybody, but the comparisons could be made to Soft Machine, King Crimson, Jethro Tull,
Gentle Giant.
Yeah, a lot of those bands that were doing this intricate melodic work, they were mixing heavy rock rhythms and guitar with more classical and folk and jazz influences. It was a time they could be experimental bands, which was great, So I really
and the lyrics were evolving. After the Beatles, the lyrics were evolving into social statements more than just the Moon in June, lovey-dovey stuff. There was a lot of intricate, interesting things to be said.
I mean, some of their songs, the soldier, I don't want to be a soldier, for instance.
I could never be a soldier. Yeah.
It's really interesting when you listen to it,
Very plaintive singing. His voice wasn't as strong but very plaintive.
Was it Colin doing the singing? A lot of it, yeah.
I believe that was Colin.
So this is Colin here, I think. I'm writing
in '69, before I met them. But I got that off the net.
And then this is
him now. Later. That's him
and I
later.
must say he still performs live and he's got a YouTube
great.
channel. He plays a lot of rock and roll stuff, and he's done instrumental rock and roll things and so on. I've seen him playing at festivals doing Beatles material and Route 66 and stuff, and he's really a good player.
I'm sure he slips the original material in because they're very creative guys.
Oh yeah, I love this. I just love this picture. It's great.
Yeah,
and it's
fabulous. I got this up the net. That's them again. That's the two of them, Stuart and Colin. I think Colin's on the left.
They're very similar.
They had massive amounts of hair when I knew them. Massive hair on there.
They did seem to like doing this kind of
look like rabbis.
This kind of, well, he's in I think one of Colin's current bands is the rabbis, the Rockin' Rabbis or something.
Rockin' Rabbis or something. Yeah.
Forgive me, Colin, if I've got that wrong. The
Nigel.
drummer, yeah, is now you're saying that he played flute too.
Flute and oboe, I believe. Yeah.
Wow.
Mainly oboe.
Yeah.
I've never quite figured out what the image is on the bass drum, because everybody had a thing on their bass drum
Yeah,
in those days.
It's kind of a
Like
half of a
logo.
skull, but with the eyes. But
Yeah, never quite.
Oops, very small picture.
That's a tiny little. I think that's much later. He moved to Australia. He runs a studio. He's a producer, and he has his own studio in Cairns, I believe, in Queensland.
That's quite up there.
I wish I'd known. I've been to Australia loads of times. I would have, back before.
This is Nigel,
the
is
internet
it?
and
Is
email.
it Nigel?
I had no idea. That's Nigel
Nigel
Pegram.
Pegram.
Very nice guy. He was behind my first American tour with Steel Eye Span. So we'll get to that another day. Yeah. Connections, man. Connections.
And this is another great image of them on stage.
I've never seen that one before.
Are
you sure that's
them? According to the internet, but maybe it's Pat Travers.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, this is John Earl.
Okay.
Woodwinds and keyboards.
Okay.
And now the bass player was the gentleman who went on to work with
Pete Cowling.
Pete Cowling went on to work with Pat Travers for many years. So he had quite the career following Gnidrolog. So good for him,
Unfortunately, I only found that out on the internet age, and he died about 6-7 years ago, I think. Otherwise, he was a northerner. He was from Hull or Grimsby.
Yeah.
And when you live in England, there's the north-south divide. So he and I won't say we clicked perfectly, but we understood each other. And he was a very creative guy. He designed the album cover for Lady Lake.
Yeah. And
that's a better picture of him.
Yeah, sadly no longer with us.
Fabulous bass player, solid bass player.
As I say, he did have quite a career with Pat Travers' band for many years afterwards. Yeah, so sadly,
I wish sadly
gone. Yeah, but so really musically and instrumentally, an incredibly accomplished band. I mean, given that they were all just young guys as well at the time, very, very redolent of the era that guys were willing to push the boundaries, even as young guys,
And you were literally like sacrificing your future. Maybe there was no guarantees and anything, and nobody was thinking about Social Security. You were just like surviving, but doing what you wanted to do. How many people get to do that? Do what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to be a part of that, which is incredible.
Yeah.
See up close.
I couldn't believe it. I finally thought, you know what? I'm getting to be into this, because the first year and a half in London, we were playing around as mates. We were doing gigs and we were learning, but breaking out into a completely other side of London, a completely new set of people. Yeah, kind of ballsy in a way.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, but I mean, nothing.
I was proud of myself, and
nothing could stop you. I mean, this is the attitude of the era.
Yeah. It just felt great. Yeah.
A guy that was in this, I love this picture. So a guy that was involved with the band, and I'm assuming you met him because they were recording at the time.
Oh yeah.
It's John Schroeder. John Schroeder. Yeah. Now, I don't recall knowing this guy before, and I thought I was a equivalent of a musical transporter, but he actually worked on a lot of hits back in the day. So Helen Shapiro, Cliff Richard,
Welcome Back to Happiness.
Cliff Richard, the Quo, Sounds Incorporated, who were a big session band and had their own career. So really big musician on the scene, and he came in as producer for Lady Lake?
I think so, because I was with them on the second half of 71, and I think they must have already completed most of the track. Guys on X tell us, because we were at D Lane Lee Studios, which is in the heart of Soho, and I've been looking that up a bit. That was formed by Major William Delane Lee. Very interesting name. He was a attaché for the French government to the English government, a military attaché, and he stayed on in England. And they made they started a studio doing overdubbing French English language onto French films, turned into a recording studio. This is a whole another world to me. Soho.
Yeah.
And John Schroeder, whichever tracks he worked on, you can see he's got the little cheroot, he's got the jewelry, the hair, the pendant. He was a dandy.
It reminds me of Peter Wingard and Jason King.
Exactly.
That's the look I immediately thought of.
They would have all been going to the same gay bars or whatever. Oh, excuse me.
Same clubs. No, fair enough. I mean, it's
might have been.
It's nothing.
I don't remember him being anything like that, but he was definitely a dandy. And I was not used to any of this. I mean, I came from Hartlepool, steel mills, and I was never exactly. We went around these kind of people. Ironically, I did meet these people when I worked at Mother Wouldn't Like It, which was before I left them to work with Gnidrolog. It was a boutique on Bond Street, and we used to meet a lot of these people coming and going in Bond Street, checking out the fashions. So, but it was still like a new element to me, and he had his cheroots and his way of talking. I'm sure I was just like looking up to him.
And you mentioned the bars, and it's not. I mean, one of the aspects of that era and the scene was that people were mingling in the bars of all sorts, all proclivities, and sharing fashion and the whole scene.
I probably sound a little bit rude there, but I'm just ebullient. But there's a lot of that.
You weren't meaning in a bad way. It's not pejorative. It's when it was the London scene was something for everybody. Yeah. So
unfortunately, he's passed away too. He died about 6 years ago. I just looked some up on the internet,
because there's one of his albums. He made a whole load of what would be called kind of middle of the road albums, or
light listening. Yeah.
And
I just remembered something. Delaney Studios. We were there. You'd probably get the overnight shift because we'd do a gig in the daytime or the evening, and then go to the studios overnight because it was cheaper. I'm sure that was the case. And I remember there was a bakery just around the back in the Muse. The Muse is a little carriageway from the olden days where deliveries and things would be. There was a bakery, and there was fresh pastries and stuff, and he would say, "Do be a good boy and go around and get some pastries, won't you?" And I was just like, I loved it. I still can smell that bakery,
especially coming from the Northeast, where people didn't really talk like that.
That's right,
dear boy. Anthony Hopkins, dear boy.
Oh, it was, it was great. I mean, the whole thing for me, every single day was something new. There was no videos and internet. It was just bumping into new things every day. Through the bands, what would I have done otherwise? I don't know what I would have done if I'd have stayed in Hartlepool. No idea.
You didn't need degrees or qualifications up the yin yang in order to
Thank God. Yeah. I had very little. Art and English. I've got art and English O levels in England. That's something, but no good in a manufacturing town.
No, I guess not. No. Really? Just to take a little look at the records that the band produced, the albums. There were two. Well, there were three if you count the live album, but there was the In Spite of Harry's Toenail album, which is a fantastic title, but with the band logo. I guess you would call it the Gnidrolog album.
Right.
This was
like the Beatles, the White Album.
That's right.
Gnidrolog, In Spite of Harry's Toenail.
This is the two studio albums are hidden gems, really. I mean, it's relatively unknown compared to the contemporaries like Yes and Genesis and so on. But quintessential progressive rock. This one, supposedly it said in the internet, was produced by Ian MacDonald of King Crimson. I have no idea if that's true or not.
Possibly.
It could be.
Maybe some tracks.
Yeah.
Maybe some
because there's
tracks.
a King Crimson-esque sound, a little bit of it, but that's just because of the style of the music a lot of these bands were trying to do and the complexity. There's great titles, though. A Dog with No Collar, for instance. Great title. But that it had their fusion of rock, folk, and classical. And I guess you saw them playing this material and the Lady Lake material live. From your perspective, standing watching, how difficult was it to reproduce that stuff live? Did the band struggle?
Well, you have to look at the equipment. I mean, the bass was a kind of a Marshall's type stack, 4x12s. The guitarist had the same, and so I think we carried our own PA. I struggle to remember everything, but I think we had some control over everything because there would have been basic monitors. And I'm struggling a little bit because it was basically bass, drums, guitar, and he could only play the oboe when he wasn't drumming. I'm sure they had to make some concessions to
Well, I
live
think
performance. But it was interesting. You were part of a creative outfit. I was a laborer, but I was helping them create. It was
Well, I
great.
think John Earl was on woodwinds and keyboards for a lot of the time. Nigel may have played a lot of that stuff on the records, but they had John Earl playing too. So,
Yeah, but did he play oboe?
well, I don't know about the oboe. That's the
I think
problem.
Nigel wouldn't have given up his
That's
oboe
right,
gig, you know.
Rock and
We've got
roll.
to get these guys on, and they can clarify.
I know
for
they'll
us.
have to clarify. Maybe
I'll make attempts.
You were there, so I was counting on you.
Yeah. Well, I know it's 50-something years ago, and I
know.
was just so into the moment. And I've never been too musically analytical. I just enjoy.
Of course.
Yeah.
But this is the album I think is possibly slightly better known. And you turned me onto this by mentioning it. I was playing it earlier. Lady Lake, second album.
My copy. Still got my copy.
I did, and it looks like it's in good shape. Your copy,
like of course, really everything I own is I look after things.
Pristine, yeah. This album is possibly slightly better known and has had quite an influence, I think, on those who are into that music over the years. I'm sure a lot of other bands have quoted it too, and it really took that style of mingling those genres together. I mean, you can hear the jazz influences on it. You can hear the folk influences, the classical training of the brothers, classical musician training. But yeah, I Could Never Be a Soldier is a great track. A Dog with No Collar, fantastic title. The track Lady Lake, Social Embarrassment. I think these songs do get a lot of mileage in the progressive rock world and progressive rock radio.
And don't forget that period. We did quite a few gigs. I mean, we do on average 3 gigs a week. And so in town, if we played the marquee, there'd have been people in the audience that were in bands and would have picked up on these things. You know, it was just all out there. Everybody was checking everybody out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the bills, we're going to look at some of the concerts that you were involved with and some of the other gigs the band did, and you'll see the bills are just incredible of who was all on the same bill. Yeah. So we'll just start. Oh, yeah. No, sorry, I should mention there was a live album as well.
Right. That's at Weeley. That's the Weeley Festival.
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that for sure.
Just off the stage right there.
Yeah. So
that Lady Lake album, Peter Cowling, the bass player, he designed that logo, that art cover.
Cool. Yeah. So looking from a gig perspective, I know you sent me a list of 1971 gigs, and we've got posters of some of these. So we'll look at
Weeley Open Air Festival was my second gig with them.
Right.
That was a rush. I don't even know what time we were probably on in the morning.
Well,
we're not even mentioned on some posters, but it was a buzz.
Yeah, so Weeley is down here, I think. Is this the Weeley we're talking about near Clacton?
Yeah, it's near Clacton. Yeah, that's it.
So it's a festival I'd never heard of in my
1971. There's only been a couple before that.
Yeah,
in Britain.
And there's a lot of great posters from this and images. So the Weeley Festival Progressive Music, as you say, your second gig with the band.
That was my second gig.
Yeah,
60,000 people.
And as an experience, just doing the work, getting the gear in, setting up, getting out. What was that like?
Well, you got to imagine you're 21 and you're beginning to crack what you wanted to do. And I keep saying, like, coming from Hartlepool, but it was the last thing in our mind. There was absolutely no concept. I won't say we invented it, but we saw bands without even realizing they had Rowdies. So to have come to London, work with your pals, and then answering an advert on the Melody Maker, and then all of a sudden you're setting up equipment for an open air festival.
A big festival.
I won't say it went to my head, but there's a picture of me stage right. I am grinning ear to ear. I'm squatted down stage right. I am so into it. Because I'm going, I can't. My dad said to me, "You'll never do it. You'll be back in a month." And I sent him so many postcards from all over the world, just to spite him, probably. So it was a buzz. Bringing the equipment off the truck, you were doing it. Nothing was too much. It was just, you got it on the stage. There was a stage manager, probably. You just set it up. That somebody be putting the mics on, and you just couldn't get enough of it.
I like this particular image because it shows the layout of the place. Right. Yeah. The church in the middle.
think-
next to church.
Yeah, I think Gnidrolog I got a mention in a very small print, probably.
Well, they
But
did.
We were
But
there.
let's look at this poster because it's easier to see.
Yeah,
This is a much better.
yeah, they're not mentioned on that one.
Um,
It was 2 days.
yeah.
So we didn't see some of these
But
people.
when you look at some of the acts that were playing, T-Rex, The Faces, Mott the Hoople, King Crimson, Status Quo, Al Stewart, Van der Graaf, Generator, for
That's
you.
right, another one of mine. Juicy Lucy. The two of them were from Middlesbrough.
Yeah, yeah. Head, Hands and Feet, which was
Albert Lee.
Yeah. Just incredible. Curved Air, Stuart Copeland. I don't know if he was in the band then, but there's such a great, like Rory Gallagher, the great Rory Gallagher. Stone the Crows. What a great lineup to be a part of.
Yeah.
That's another. Just incredible. I think you did Gnidrolog may have got a mention on.
We get a mention on one or two of those, but probably very small print.
Yeah. You were on the second day, was it, or the first day?
Oh God, I'd have to look at my diary.
There you go. You're mentioned there. Gnidrolog are mentioned right there.
Yeah,
it's very small print, but
let's see. I kept my day-to-day diary from the. So what's it at? Weeley Festival. We did it on the Saturday. So Saturday and Sunday probably.
So you were on the first. The great poster and some images of chaos and madness.
There's the hair behind the hair. The men behind the hair.
That's right. Classic. There are some quite good shots.
Though, and let's see. I've got me arrowed there.
Yeah, that's a great shot.
You can enlarge that more. I am beaming from ear to ear. Look at that. Big glasses.
I would have been so excited.
I think I was posing and with the band. I think I was doing a bit. I think it went in my head a little bit there. It was unbelievable.
Maybe they're going, "What's he doing on stage?"
But you can't imagine. Like I said, there's no training. You just have a go, and to have been part of this huge production.
I'm intrigued by this picture because you can see that Marshall were clearly sponsoring things. Marshall amps. Right. We'd left behind the days of no PA and tinny amps in the 60s. There's a full stack, full back line.
Bass bins, mid-range horns, tweeters. Oh, we're starting to learn all about crossovers, low impedance balance line microphones. We were starting to learn all this stuff. Yeah.
And it's great that there is a live audio recording of this, which you can get of the band.
Yeah, I've got to get a copy.
And it's quite a big crowd there. I mean, I would say that, what's that, 40, 50,000 or something at least?
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice. And one more small picture. But
that's the bass player. Yeah, that was, you can imagine. I mean, the year before I was coming down to London as a complete bumpkin. And I was. I was just a tiny cog. I've never blown my trumpet like I was an innovator. I was just like I said, we had to go, and I was getting into it. That was quite something.
Oh, I'm totally impressed, mate. I mean, it's incredible stuff. Now, I've got a few more posters of various gigs. You've been involved in some of them, not all of them, but there's just an example of.
That's after me, but
but just an example of the bands that were on the circuit that were. So you've got Argent headlining with Gnidrolog. Next day was Edgar Broughton. This is at the Rainbow Pavilion in Torquay. So maybe Mark
might have been there. We did gigs with Wishbone. I know that we did gigs with Wishbone.
Yeah, and you've got Barclay James Harvest mentioned at the bottom as a band you don't hear so much about now.
Yeah, we're a very good band too.
Big band. Now this is one. I don't know what year this is, but the supporting Thin Lizzy and David Bowie, Gnidrolog in Bristol.
Yeah, that wasn't me.
No, but
probably
again,
72. We could look at it by find out what year Sunday the 27th was on.
Yeah,
probably 72.
Electric Village in Bristol. But again, an example of just the kind of bills you could see, and who Gnidrolog were mingling with, and
those artists would have been curious. I mean, David Bowie might, if he had the time, he might have spared a few minutes. He'd have picked some little nugget and vice versa,
I did notice when you listen to Lady Lake, there is a couple of Bowie-esque moments, and I don't mean that derivatively, but it's a sound that David hadn't found his glam sound in. He was still doing a kind of a pastoral prog thing. which
Yeah.
so here's another one from the Lyceum.
Rab Noakes is on.
Sunday 11th of
a distant relative.
Yes, indeed. Sunday 11th of April with Gnidrolog. The day before was a couple of days before was Van der Graaf and Genesis, but
yeah. Audience
so
Genesis,
the band were definitely in the scene now. The Big Brother.
That was that.
Yes. Yeah. Tell me about the Big Brother Oldfield Tavern at Greenford.
Big pub on the west side of London. Greenford is at Middlesex, out towards Heathrow.
Yeah.
Just a pub with a big music room. I mean, smell the floorboards and the beer and the sweat. Just a good rockin' London venue. Fabulous.
And this was a headliner for the band as well.
But it does say Lights and Sounds. So
Lights and Sounds by Zeta Cepheid Inc.
Zeta Cepheid. Yeah, I guess that's a galactic thing. But we carried a little primitive lighting thing with us. I'm just having a little flashback. We had these poles with a big metal base. You screw the poles in. And on the top was a lamp with a little rotating color wheel. So we had one other side of the stage. So you had like changing colors. That was like revolutionary, really. I mean, so we didn't need no stinking Zeta.
You had your own.
We had our own.
Which you were in charge of course.
Oh, no, kind of. Not really. I was just a humper, drove the truck.
There's a big advert I found for Gnidrolog supporting Lou Reed.
And the album's just come out, look.
Yeah, this was at the time of the Harry's Toenail.
Well, obviously RCA were promoting them because we did that. The Albert Hall was all promoted by RCA.
Yeah, just incredible lineups that guys who appeared with. Here's one of yours as well.
Yep.
It's possibly Mark Emery's house, Hobbit's Garden.
Hobbit, yeah. It's just a little, you go down some steps. I mean, I've been past it a few years ago. I was in Wimbledon. I thought, if I can go and find it. You went down some steps in this little club downstairs. Just this little folky place.
If anybody that's watching this video knows if it's still going, let us know. The Hobbit's Garden, or if it's renamed.
A 3-band special. Tyrn and Nog. They were very eclectic, very interesting little band.
I don't remember those guys.
They were kind of hard to describe them. It would be like folk music, but with modern twists, bit Hobbit-ish, bit like Middle Earth-ish, maybe.
Yeah. And
getting these 3 bands in and out this tiny little club would all have been part of the fun. Muscling 4x12s, arguing over who gets the drum kit where, and me trying to nail the drums down. And
you like to nail them down, I know.
Well, at times, yeah.
Clear Blue Sky is the 3rd band on there. If anyone ever remembers them, let us know who they are.
Yeah.
Sorry, this one is one I found on the marquee, May 8th, 71, which is just before.
With Terry. We did a couple of shows with Terry. Yeah.
Again, I love the lineups. You've got Genesis a few nights before, along with Bob Harris, DJ Bob Harris. Sounds
Whispering Bob. And Sticky George. I think there's a few of you could probably call me Sticky occasionally.
Sticky George, Wild Turkey. Yeah. Pato, who I've seen mentioned a few times in these lineups.
Very good singer.
Yeah. But Smooth Bitch. I'm not sure you could get away with that name for a band now, but that's.
Yeah, there was a lot of dodgy names back then.
But Gnidrolog with Terry Reid. This is another one at the Queen Elizabeth Hall.
That's like high society.
Yeah. Now you must have been involved with this one, I think.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. Queen Elizabeth Hall.
I mean, that's like the South Bank Arts Centre. I mean, I thought I was on another planet. You can imagine. This is like unbelievable.
And the Queen Elizabeth Hall is a little bit more upmarket. I mean, I've been to a couple of events there, and a little bit more. I've been to various exhibitions around there as well. Yeah. Faces, Al Stewart again, Rory Gallagher.
Classy.
Brilliant. Yeah, nice. That must have been a nice gig.
Yeah.
Especially if you bought the 45 pence ticket.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
and a couple more
fabulous.
Is that you sent is this one.
Town Hall, exactly what you might expect.
Yeah. Ealing Town Hall with light show and disco.
30 pence.
30 pence. Sam Apple Pie. And
in my diary, I kept a note of how much the band was getting. So on that other PDF, there's like 50 quid here, 30 quid there, 60 quid.
We'll go back and look at it in a minute. Yeah. The thing is, it says disco. I'm curious. So you go to see a couple of bands that are presumably prog rock, and everyone's sitting on the floor enwrapped watching it, and then the disco comes on. What were they playing? Like dance music, or
what would it be in 71? What would be the disco music of
T-Rex,
71? Glam rock, maybe more than
Motown, glam rock. Yeah,
that's a historical thing. Needs to be investigated. What kind of disco music was there in 71?
Especially at a prog rock gig, though.
I know.
And then this one we talked about the other day in our iconic venues, the Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah.
Centipede. Supporting Centipede. As you
I
say,
sent you a picture of Centipede, didn't I? It's a photo from the New Music Express. There's like 48 people in the band, hence the name.
Yeah, and you had to squeeze Gnidrolog on in front of all that stuff.
We were totally unnecessary. RCA Records must have insisted because the record was coming out.
Yeah.
But I knew a couple of people in Centipede. There was a guy called Gary Window, phenomenal sax player. Spent a lot of time in America with jazz greats.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And he was in that band Armada we mentioned.
Okay, yeah.
And then Robert Wyatt was the drummer and singer for the Sock Machine. I was quite pally with him through Gary. And there was a whole host of everybody was intermingling. Jazz musicians were meeting with rock and roll guys, and idiots like me could tack along.
It is a fertile period. It's why it endlessly fascinates me. The late 60s, early 70s, not just because I'm an old guy, but it's rare to get that intermingling, as you call it. Now everyone's so stratified. I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. Everyone's in their lane, whereas then everyone just wanted to mingle and pick stuff up.
My tastes were wide open at this point. I kept some other diaries, and I was buying jazz records, folk records, Miriam Makeba, music from Africa, just classical music. It was just everybody was just wide, like open tuning.
A real Renaissance era, I think. Yeah, you mentioned, so you did send through the PDF, and this is the gigs you were involved with.
Right. I was only with them like 4.5.
Sorry, you froze a little bit there, mate. Missed you.
But, am I still frozen?
Your audio's flipped a little bit out of sync, unfortunately.
Is it still?
Oh, no, you're back. You're back. So anyway, you were with them for, what, 5-6 months?
About 5-6 months, yeah. Maybe before these dates, I was getting to know them in rehearsals and things. And I think the only reason, you don't know, I don't remember what was going on managerially, and who knows, somebody might have thought I wasn't up for it. But at the end of December, I left, and I shortly after traveled with the Van de Graaff Generator, because I think I was already like looking over the horizon. I wanted to travel to Europe, and they had no plans to.
Okay.
And I think everybody understood. I don't think there was any hard feelings.
No, I mean, everyone has the student life should have the opportunity to move on and do other things. But you mentioned the fees, so you got a £30, a £50, a £60.
See, if you showed the Rowdies, the other guys, they go, he's a train spotter. That's the way I think. I keep notes. I make things. It's just the way I am. Producers and borrowed the PA because ours was too big. Look, November the 17th, the Fulham Ground. We borrowed Mal's PA because ours was too big. What did we have? That
How
was
could
too
it be
big.
Too big?
I mean, must have had the bass bins or something. Must have been too big.
Yeah, I've heard of the Greyhound in Fulham. I've heard of that place.
Oh, that was a cracker of a pub gig. Almost every night of the week we were in there.
I've heard of that place. Yeah.
Then the Speakeasy.
Yeah. Well, So you've got the Delane Leah Studios sessions in here too. With John Schroeder. Yeah. Fee of £75 for the Watford Technical College with Stone
we were doing well there. Say that Camberwell Art College. We must have done that after the session. The Delane Lee would have been after the gig.
Yeah, you've got also the first mention here of Wishbone Ash with a gig in Llanelli, which is Wales, isn't it?
Llanelli in Wales. Llanelli.
I'm Scottish. I've refused to pronounce things in the Welsh way. Okay, I'm sorry, Welsh people. Llanelli. And the brothers, the Gnidrolog brothers, will not like me mispronouncing the Welsh stuff. So
I don't think they were Welsh. They were from North London.
All right, but
one of them married a Welsh lady, and they moved to Wales.
Colin, I think moved to Wales. Yeah. That's...
He met her when I was with them, and as far as I know, they're still together. Isn't that beautiful?
It's beautiful. Yeah.
I remember her very, very clearly. It would be great to see them all again.
It would, and maybe doing this video, maybe Colin will get in touch. Because I
This one,
freely admit I don't know much about the band other than I've listened to Lady Lake a few times.
see this. We got the technical college at Slough. The Slade's Roadies scared the pants off me. They were rough. They were rough.
Yeah.
I just want to put my 4x12 there. He'll tell you when you can do that. I'm like, oh. They were rough, and the band were kind of rough, and their crew were rough.
Were they still in their Bover Boy looking
must
period?
have been in 71. I think they'd already had hits. But that band next to it, Frup.
Frup, yeah.
That was a band. That was a word that they just did a squiggle. They didn't want to have a name. This is a band that went on to be called Underworld. They were kind of now do trance. They do Glastonbury.
Yeah. Well, they were ahead of their time.
Two main
then.
guys. I did this with them.
All right.
Yeah, they were ahead of Prince. Prince had his squiggle. I was
just thinking there they were ahead of Prince.
Frup was just a squiggle, and people go, well, we have to call you something on the radio. Well, call us what you want. Well, it looks like Frup. Okay.
Okay, Frup it is.
I think they ripped it off from Gyup from us, the UUP thing.
Yep.
But I worked with them years later, and I did a couple of gigs with Frup, and who knows what contact we had.
Yeah, what a fantastic! I mean, even that short period of time, there's some great venues, some great bands that you worked with, and hey, you reached the dizzy heights of £75 for one fee, and you were getting 10 of that.
I was getting
the
10.
Band were getting nothing. You were getting 10, and all the semolina you could eat.
I don't know what the band got. I don't know what I hope they got something for all that trouble. We just don't know back then. Who knows? I can't remember who the manager was. He was probably some shady car salesman up in Epping or something.
And I think in 72 they split up. They did after Lady Lake, and I have no idea why, but
I don't know. Well, like I wasn't there, so I can't even speculate. But Dick Parkinson, it says on that album that he's a co-producer with the band. He was quite a strong character. He intimidated me a bit. I was very new. I admitted it. Every time I borrowed the van to go and do something, I would clip it on. He'd give a novice. I hope the guys at the time got their money's worth out of me. But he went on to be the technical director for some of the big gigs in London. He was like the Crystal Palace and the Rainbow Theatre. If you were doing an advance call about power requirements, it was Dick Parkinson. He went on, and I bumped into him on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood about 1977. And by now, I'm full of piss and vinegar. I'm with the Average White Band, traveling the world. I'm
Jack the Lad.
And I bumped into him, and I go, how you doing, Dick Parkinson? And I was not the little skinny, nervous newcomer. He was like, oh, great to see you. That was fabulous. But he died also. I think he had dementia in the end.
Horrible thing.
So what might have gone on between him? He might have been trying to take over the band. I don't know.
Oh, we don't know. Yeah. I mean, maybe Colin will come on and tell us. Sunset Strip, by the way, you're going to have to show that to me because I've never been there. And you live in
If you ever come to LA, I'll give you the tour. I'll give you the best tour. You couldn't get this tour for love and the money.
All right. Well, there won't be any money. And less love.
I take people around the city that lived here their whole lives and they don't know this stuff's here.
Well, you saw the rock and roll underbelly. The underbelly.
So the underbelly and everything below that.
Yeah. All right. Well, well, thank you for sharing those memories with us, Alan, and all the memories of Gnidrolog and that great experience. It's fascinating. I wish. I am so pleased that you are such a record keeper because you've got some great stuff. I wish we had a way of going back and seeing some of the gigs. There's no video footage that I'm aware of. Maybe it does exist. That would be awesome. But
well, perhaps the lads do. I mean, they've got a website, gnidrolog.com, and they have all kinds of projects. Like Gnosis was another thing they had going. Everything begins with GN. Gnosis. And I used to like Eric Satie. He had Gymnopedes and Gnossiens.
Oh, I love that stuff. I love Satie.
So there's all these, whether they were interested in him, I don't know. But they've got a website, gnidrolog.com. Everybody should go on, as well as after they like this program and subscribe and all that good stuff. And the Rock and Roll Rowdies, get on to Gnidrolog, tell them that you still, about them. And maybe we can see if we can get them to respond, and I might be able to get in touch with them. I have an email.
Yeah, well, it would be great to find out more about
a great band that deserved better than that journalist So
Yeah, well, I mean, music journalism in those days was forgive me, anyone that's still alive that was involved in it, was a bit of a hackery, really. It's
he was a hack. I mean,
so I just wanted to show, you mentioned subscribing. Please, everybody, subscribe to the Rock and Roll Rowdies. Click the bell for notifications. Leave a comment.
Right. Every Thursday.
Leave comments, leave likes. Every Thursday, we do live shows at 1 p.m. Mountain Time, noon Pacific, 8 p.m. UK time. We're a multinational organization. Hosted by me, That 70s Rock Fan, and you can find my channel at That 70s Rock Fan. And I do lots of music stuff. I do things about cult movies. I do Korean entertainment and all sorts of other great stuff. And occasionally you'll see guys like Granny on there too. So
Granny couldn't be here today. I'm standing in for Granny.
Big G is here. Yeah.
I'm Big G. So you sometimes you'll eventually get to know the difference,
Yeah. Well, thank you again, mate, for doing this. Really appreciate it. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, maybe not tomorrow. I actually have tomorrow. I'll try to get on if I can, just to say hello, but I may not be able to.
You mean you've got a note that allows you out of school?
Doctor's note.
Well, anyway, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thanks for sharing those memories of Gnidrolog in your early career.
My pleasure.
We will do more of this again soon, I hope. Yes, Lady Lake, great album. Check it out. And until next time, everybody, keep on rocking.